My name is Morgan Day. I'm the lead encounter designer on World of Warcraft.
And my name is Daniel Stahl. I'm a producer on World of Warcraft.
Push forward!
We're here showing off Island Expeditions in Battle for Azeroth. Island Expeditions represent this amazing new feature where you are going to take two of your friends and explore uncharted islands. Think of getting a treasure map with these 3 red X's on it and landing and trying to uncover where are the biggest sources of azurite on this island. You're going to face off against who knows what, because this is one of the most dynamic features we've ever made. You're going to see things that we didn't even expect. So that's how exciting it is for us to be able to bring Islands Expeditions to Battle for Azeroth.
Yeah, so with Battle for Azeroth, we're looking to have at least 5 islands when we ship the feature. So each of those islands will be, very different in terms of their landscape, their layout, what's the ecology of these islands, right? So for PAX, we brought the one of our jungle islands, right? And on that island, you'll see things that you would expect to see on a jungle, right? You'll have tigers that are prowling through. There might be Hanson who are hanging from trees, and every time you go, that ecology can be different, right? Maybe one time that you show up, there's Hanson on the island. The next time you show up, there might be Sarok on the island. Additionally, on top of that, there are things like random starting locations on that island. So unlike a dungeon where you show up, you're at the entrance of the dungeon, okay, at the end of this hall, there's a big bad lieutenant, and then at the end of that hall, there's a boss. On Islands Expeditions, because you're showing up at different locations and there could be different things every time you show up, you never know what you're going to see. You might land and see a giant obelisk over there that is going to give you a big buff, and then over there a big rarity. And then the next time, instead, there's a hill, and at the top of the hill, there's cannons that you can take control of and use for yourself as you go across the island. In addition, like Daniel mentioned, one of the big things about Battle for Azeroth is that conflict between the Horde and the Alliance. It's been bubbling up over time. It's coming to a head because of this new resource that showed up called Azurite. Azurite is an incredibly powerful resource that we're all looking to grab as fast as we can. So because of that, this conflict has come up. So when we show up on the island, we're going to have to take a survey of the landscape, decide where we want to go, but there will also be the enemy faction has a presence there. There's something that we developed for islands called advanced NPCs. This is a type of NPC you've never seen before, right? So when I was talking about that Hanson or that tiger, when you punch those, they're going to come straight at you. They're going to try to hit you in the face until one of you two falls over, right? Where these advanced NPCs are going to do things that you might not have seen before, right? They're going to have a understanding of the lay of the land. They're going to walk around and say, okay, cool, there's a big pocket of azurite over there, or there's the Horde over there. And these advanced NPCs, we have different teams, who have different motivations. They have different things that they want to do. One of my favorite is Sneaky Pete. Wait, do you want to talk about Sneaky Pete? Because I know you like Sneaky Pete.
Well, we talk a little bit about these advanced NPCs having personality. They're created as a team, and so they have a leader, and they have their own way of competing against you. They have a strategy, but they also have their own unique personality traits. So, for example, Sneaky Pete, his leader might be saying, hey, we need to go over here and take out this big creature, but Sneaky Pete might be thinking to himself, well, actually, I think I'm going to sneak over here and I'm going to harass this guy, or I'm going to go grab that chest. I'll be right back, boss. But that's the kind of fun that you can have on Island Expeditions, because these advanced NPC teams, they're really giving that fantasy that you're playing against the other faction, right? These aren't players. This is not a player coming after you and just CCing you and making sure you can't move. No, these are creatures that represent, I think, a new type of challenge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, not only are these advanced NPCs going to be different every time you get there, the island could be different, what's there is different, but which team that you're fighting, that you're facing off against, can very much so impact how you approach the island, right? When you talk about, Sneaky Pete, his team's going to be more aggressive, right? They're going to be coming after you more frequently than some other teams might. So cool, we're fighting against that team. Let's huddle up. Let's not split up. Let's stay together. Let's move together. Let's not get too far out. Where you might fight against a team that's a lot more passive, and they're more passive. They're going to try to avoid you. So maybe you'll say, cool, we have a rogue in our group. You go get some of these locked chests that are out on the field, or go get some of these azurite pockets that you can get on your own, and we can kind of divide and conquer against a team that's more passive. So, there's a lot of things that are going to change your tactics as you move into a new island, but it's also one of those things where we want to make sure players have a sense of mastery. You know, they understand how to approach each individual island. So, you know, we kind of built this hierarchy of, you know, what are my goals? So, for instance, you know, with the many other things that are happening that are very dynamic, there might be events that are popping up. You know, you're gonna land on the island. You were given that treasure map that says these are the really lucrative spots. But while I'm there, maybe there is an elemental invasion that happens, and there's a fire lord or a frost lord that shows up and appears on the island. And if you go into the portal, you can defeat that boss, and that is very lucrative. It gives you a ton of Azerite, so you know, okay, these dynamic events are going to be really, really important. So we should always try to prioritize these. But you know, we're always trying to build that sense of exploration and really play that up with Battle for Azeroth.
Building advanced NPCs, building this new AI really fits the story of Island Expeditions, and you know. You might be able to speak to this as a lead encounter designer, but when you add something new and exciting like this to World of Warcraft, I'm sure light bulbs are going off in your head.
Yep, absolutely. So, you know, like Daniel mentioned, I deal a lot in dungeons and raids, and I see these new features, this new technology that's being developed for these features, and like, you know, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I just want to get my hands on it, right? But you know, really, it's about taking that new technology and making it as good as it can be for the feature that we're developing it for, right? So where, you know, like Daniel said, Islands Expeditions, we really want to sell that fantasy, sell that idea of the Horde versus Alliance conflict. So when we're developing that, that's the goal, right? We're trying to make it as awesome as we can for that feature, where, you know, once we get it out there, once we get the players' hands on it, we'll be able to figure out, like, okay, how was this received? On top of that, you know, you don't want to stretch a feature, you don't want to stretch new technology too thin when it comes to what it's trying to fulfill, right? These advanced NPCs, we're going to make them as awesome as we can for islands,
yes.
And that's the goal, right? As soon as we start saying, yeah, and we also want to use them in a dungeon, or we also want to use them in a raid, we start to like kind of stretch it a little bit more than it might need to. So, you know, with a feature like this, you know, we always look at it, and I always like to use the example of you know, the Arathi Blizzard. It was a brawl that we developed for Legion, where we added this concept of a fog of war, where, you know, that fog of war restricts your vision, right? So when you're up on the lumber mill, you can't see all the way down to the farm. And then, you know, once that brawl came out in Legion, once we saw how it was received, it was really positive. People really enjoyed it. So we took that and we made a mechanic out of it for Tuma Sargeras on Kil'jaeden, right? So once we see how it's received, we then apply it to other places. So.
And we're like, that's a general philosophy, right? Like, you want to make something good for what the story is trying to tell. A lot of times features are developed because we're trying to evoke that feeling, right? And Islands is that perfect example where you're going to arrive, and we wanted to give that feeling, like, what does it really mean to be a hero of the Alliance or the Horde? And you really need to have that skirmish. Like, your regular NPC monsters aren't going to give you that, right? Like, you need to feel like you're fighting something that is as challenging as you are,
yeah.
And that's where it really makes sense there.
And I mean, funny enough, now that I'm thinking more about it, you know, you take that Fog of War example, you know, it was developed for, you know, these brawls that were a big feature for us in Legion. And actually, you know, now that we're looking at Battle for Azeroth and we're looking at the Islands feature, we're using that same Fog of War on Islands, right? Because this feature and this expansion, it's about exploration. It's about going around and seeing new things and gathering Azerite from what we've discovered. So, you know, when you show up to the island, you and your team have a Fog of War where you can see and you're uncovering your map. You're exploring and uncovering things as they come up. So you'll see that little treasure chest icon pop up on your map. You know, okay, cool, we need to go to the treasure chest. And then, you know, you can kind of explore and uncover things as you go. So that's a great example of something that was developed for one very specific reason. We made it as cool as we can, and then now we can apply it to other places once we see how it plays out, what it feels like. Yeah,
it makes sense there. Here at PAX East, we've been showing off Island Expeditions, and there has been a lot of hooting and hollering. We understand that it's fun to fight against the Horde or against the Alliance, right? It really evokes that feeling. If you've ever played World of Warcraft, you know, you've always heard for the Horde or for the Alliance. This is a great example where people can really declare their allegiance, and it really gives you that excitement of being able to fight off. So on the floor here, I've heard a lot of that. So people cheering, people getting back in line because they're like, oh, I want one more chance at that. I want to do that again. Yeah. So that's been a really fun thing to see.
Yeah. So with Islands, the demo that we've got on the floor here at PAX, this is actually the normal difficulty of Islands, and we're actually going to ship with 4 different difficulty of Islands. Right? We're going to have normal, heroic, mythic, and PvP. So this is just what we're discovering with normal difficulty. And And, one of the things that we've been hearing a lot about and seeing a lot of is, it's all about this exploration. You show up on the island and you take in the landscape. And one of the other things that is kind of showing up on the island with you is these advanced NPCs. And we've been talking a lot about, like, okay, I just showed up. There's a lot to take in. There's so much to explore. But I'm feeling like I need to go because there's this other team. So we were talking about, like, can we use these different difficulties to maybe, tune some of those knobs? So, like, what would happen if, for instance, the enemy faction, it's an island, right? They've got a treasure map just like we do, but we got here first, right? Maybe we get a little head start on normal difficulty. So you get a lay of the land, you get to look around and discover things, and then some time passes and, oh, hey, the enemy faction just showed up. Okay, let's find them, let's figure out what's going on, let's make sure we get those big lucrative things that we might have explored and discovered earlier on.
Well, and that also plays into that teamwork aspect, right? When you look at players, if you've never played with a team before, maybe you're not as coordinated as a group of guildmates or people that you play with regularly. And I think these advanced NPCs can also have that same type of gameplay. Like they might be less coordinated on normal than they would be, say, on Mythic, right? Like on Mythic, maybe they're all on voice chat talking to each other and they know exactly what each other do. So we can certainly dial it in that way, and that's why it's fun to have things like alpha and beta where we can have one of the things I've really enjoyed about here at PAX is so many people signing up for beta. We have beta signups all the time, so getting people into the game, getting to experience what Battle for Azeroth is, please go sign up for beta. Come check it out for yourself and tell us what you think.
Right?
Yeah,
like
get the feedback. That's really
one
important.
of those things that we really need to hear. We are huge consumers of our own game. I love World of Warcraft. Have played it for years. I'm only one perspective, though. I want to hear about how other players feel about these features, what other players think about them, so we can take all that feedback and make the best decision we can.
This is just one feature, right? Island Expedition represents those small skirmishes where you're facing off against the other enemy. There's also 2 entire continents to explore, one each for the Horde or the Alliance. After you have helped bring these allied races to bear with you against the enemy, you also need to go get a foothold with the other continent to try and create these war fronts. These are a new type of battle in Battle for Azeroth where islands is that kind of small, intimate encounter. Think of these large, massive battles. And so there's a lot to do, there's a lot to fight against, and that's why we need those allies, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The magic of something like World of Warcraft, I think it's mutual respect. You just talked about having different perspectives, and Blizzard in general really believes in that every voice matters. And when you have fervent fans that love to be for the Alliance or for the Horde, and you combine that with developers that love, making the game as we do, it's like we feed each other, and you end up with just a great product because you're playing the game, you're experiencing it together, you're communicating about, I love this, I didn't like that. Like those things matter to everybody, not just to the developers, not just to the players. And when we work together, I think that's why you see, after so many years, such long lines for people that just can't get enough of it. And we ourselves are in that same boat.
Right. I mean, it really speaks to that, right? Like, we love our fan base. They're amazing. It's one of the greatest fan bases I could ask for, right? You always see, we have people coming up to us at PAX East that tell us about their experiences that they've had, or the stories that they tell about. Like, I love. Someone was telling me about. I was at a convention a while ago, and they were telling me about how they were farming for a mount, right? I think it was during Warlords of Draenor. There was a mount that they were farming, and this wolf that they were farming takes hours and hours and hours to spawn, and only one person gets it. And there was this guy who was there, got the mount, and then he hung out. He stuck around. And, it was a couple that I was talking to, and she was like, yeah, and he stuck around and helped me get my mount.
Yeah,
it was
that
the
is
sweetest
so cool.
thing.
I've seen that.
And, you build these bonds that are so strong, and I feel like that's a really big part of World of Warcraft. Yeah. Not only that, but just like you said, we are also those same players. All of us have our own experiences that we can share like that. So, we have a passion for WoW. We play World of Warcraft so much. Yeah. When you go away for the weekend, you come back into the office on a Monday, and there's
why is the hotel Wi-Fi so bad?
Well,
I just want to do my quest.
There's definitely that, but on top of that, we have people who will just walk into your office and be like, "Hey, man, I was doing the most recent raid, and this happened to me. What the heck?" Like there's a passion for the game that we share.
It's so cool
amongst ourselves, but also with our fans.
Yeah.